In 1994, media from around the world reported the shocking murder of wealthy California businessman and inventor Bill McLaughlin. Although there were suspects at the time, the case remained unsolved for more than a decade, with police making almost no progress in the case. That all changed in 2008 when a review into all the evidence and details brought forward several key witnesses and reminded the world of the truly gruesome details of the case. Welcome to Twisted Minds. My name is James, and today we take a look at the murder of Bill McLaughlin, a millionaire who was shot 6 times in the chest while he lounged in a robe, sitting in the kitchen of his Newport Beach home. Many cold cases never get solved, with those who committed the crime getting to live the rest of their life as a free person. Well, as is the case in today's video, time doesn't always bury the past. In fact, it sometimes takes time for the facts to come to light. William Bill McLaughlin was 55 when his life was taken from him on a cold December morning in 1994. Bill was described as a loving father of 3 who'd created a great life for himself and his family in Newport Beach, California. Not only did he make his fortune by inventing the medical instrument that separates plasma from blood, but he was also said to have had a wonderful home life with his loving family. After the breakdown of his 24-year-long marriage, Bill met a beautiful woman called Nanette Johnson Packard McNeil, a single mother who was 30 years younger than him. Bill became the epitome of success to all around him, with the brightness of his future showing no signs of dimming. That is until the fateful morning when the man shockingly met his end. Before his death, Bill was a shrewd businessman. His pioneering prototype that separated plasma was a business he started in his garage in Santa Ana. This went on to be used in blood banks nationwide. After his groundbreaking invention, Bill went on to create an updated version of the dialysis catheter. Before the new and improved process was developed, there was a risk that a patient could die if a mistake was made. Because of this, Bill would have no doubt prevented the deaths of many people. The success he found early on in life meant that he made his first couple millions before his 30s. While Bill's ex-wife, Susan McLaughlin, described him as very controlling and domineering, those who worked with Bill McLaughlin described him as a charming friend with a warm smile. The kind of guy who always asked about their families, while neighbors described him as a devoted father, a fitness fanatic who frequently jogged with his dog, and a generous donor to Loyola Marymount University, where he would give scholarships for poorer students. In short, most considered Bill a really nice guy, but as it turns out in this case, being nice doesn't always keep you off someone else's hit list. On December 15, 1994, Bill's son found him lying in a pool of blood on the kitchen floor of his beach home, which is located within a gated community. This happened not long after the man had returned from a trip to Las Vegas in his private plane. The young man, who had learning difficulties, frantically called 911 moments later, and it became obvious that the shots fired had killed Bill almost instantly. Once investigators arrived at the crime scene, they discovered that nothing had been ransacked or stolen, which instantly led detectives to consider that it was a personally driven homicide. According to crime scene reports, the entrepreneur was shot 6 times in the chest and torso while minding his business, sitting at the kitchen table in his luxurious home. Residents of the gated community at Balboa Coves were understandably nervous about the event and wanted answers from the police. The vice president of the community's association's board of directors shared this concern by telling the LA Times that they didn't believe it was a random shooting, but a targeted execution by someone mad at Bill. The investigation into Bill's murder kicked off with the shell casings from a 9mm gun and 2 house keys recovered from the scene being the main leads. Because of the details, police became suspicious of those closest to him, including his fiancée, Nanette Johnson, who had arrived back home hours after Bill's brutal slaying. As police broke the tragic news, Nanette initially appeared devastated. Soon after, however, detectives quickly realized that she was having an affair with a man named Eric Naposki, who was a former professional football player working as a nightclub bouncer and bodyguard at the time of the murder. Later on, while giving an interview, Nanette explained how she met Eric at the gym and began working out together. Soon after, they started hanging out, and the friendship became more than a spotter in the gym, if you get my drift. Apart from the love triangle and obvious reasons why Nanette would want Bill out of the picture, she also had another motive: financial gain. As was stated in Bill's will, she stood to gain $150,000 and ownership of the beach house, as well as being the sole beneficiary of his $1 million life insurance policy. It seemed that Nanette couldn't wait for Bill to pass away, as even before the murder, it came to light that she had forged her fiancé's name on checks to steal from him while he was still alive. Nanette had even faked his signature on a $250,000 check the day before he was murdered. When she was questioned about the fraud, she pleaded guilty. But when it came to the murder, she appeared shocked at the very idea that she could shoot her beloved partner. As police focused further on those closest to Bill, authorities began to speculate that Nanette's lover Eric was involved. This speculation only got stronger after they discovered Bill's license plate number scribbled down in a notepad in his car after they stopped him due to a traffic violation warrant. Eric didn't do himself any favors when questioned, as he kept changing his story and lied about his relationship with Nanette. Another shocking detail was how he lied about ever owning a 9mm handgun. Keep in mind that there were 9mm shells found in the kitchen. Eventually, he admitted to owning a Beretta 92F 9mm, but had no idea where it went. I mean, how do you casually misplace a gun? Did he check down the sides of the sofa cushions? Maybe it got tangled up in his blanket? Despite the glaring details, the couple was never arrested or charged because there was a lack of physical evidence. No DNA, no fingerprints, no witnesses, no admissions, not even a murder weapon. Nothing. Sadly, for many official cold cases, the story would end there due to a lack of evidence. But in the case of Bill McLaughlin, justice would eventually be served. It just took a little time. Before we get into that, I think it's important that we find out a little more about the main suspect for Bill's murder, Nanette Packard. Born Nanette Menekshaw in July 1965 in Chicago, the petite woman grew up mostly in Phoenix, Arizona, before settling down in the sunny state of California. She was just 18 years old when she married her first husband, Kevin Johnson, on November 11, 1983, with whom she had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Unfortunately, their marriage didn't last long, and they ended up divorced in 1989. Shortly after this, Nanette met Bill, who she began dating before the millionaire proposed to her. By all accounts, Bill loved his fiancée dearly, describing her as a good mother. Nanette was a single mother to her 2 young children when she met 55-year-old Bill McLaughlin through a personal ad the millionaire placed in a magazine. I guess it's true what they say. You can't buy love. He was 30 years older than Nanette, but that didn't affect things. In fact, the two got along like a house on fire, with Nanette moving into the luxurious Newport Beach home located in a wealthy community with her children within months. From there, their relationship grew, and he not only ended up becoming her fiance, but also a teacher and mentor when it came to business and finance. Bill even made sure Nanette had everything she needed to be comfortable by gifting her a generous allowance. With that being said, it seems that the relationship between Nanette and Bill wasn't a romantic one, with Nanette once saying, "It's going to sound kind of cliche, but he was sort of a father figure. He taught me about business. We sat and wrote business plans together. He included me. I did all the finances for everything. He also loved that I was a good mother." While Bill filled many needs in Nanette's life, the romance she longed for was provided by Eric Naposki, a former NFL linebacker who played part of 2 seasons in the National Football League as a linebacker for the New England Patriots in 1988 and 1989 before playing his final season with the Indianapolis Colts. At the time of Bill's murder, Eric was working as a nightclub security guard, as well as a personal bodyguard. In fact, he was working at the Thunderbird nightclub, which was only 131 yards away from McLaughlin's home. When police questioned the man, he claimed to have gone to a soccer game on the day and went to work straight after. He even went further to preach that he wouldn't have enough time to kill Bill between the game and heading to work. In his trial, however, investigators repeatedly took the same route that Eric took and determined he had plenty of time to kill Bill and go straight to work. The actions of a stone-cold killer. Despite the killing of Bill McLaughlin being a high-profile case, and being worth a hefty $55 million at the time of his death, prosecutors couldn't get enough physical evidence to back up the claims that Eric and Nanette had plotted and acted out the brutal killing of an innocent, unsuspecting man. Shortly after Bill's death in 1994, Eric was hoping to marry Nanette, especially knowing that she and Bill had never been in a romantic relationship, according to Nanette. Unfortunately for Eric, that never happened, as Nanette spent 180 days in jail for forging Bill's signature to steal his money. Following her release from prison, she married another rich businessman called John Packard on Valentine's Day, 1998, who she had a daughter with. The marriage was short-lived, however, as they legally separated in 2003, and in 2006, Nanette married William McNeil, with whom she has a son. After her last marriage, Nanette and Eric moved on with their lives, leaving the bloody past behind them, or so they thought. 15 years after Bill was brutally executed in his kitchen, detectives re-examined the case and chose to set up a bicoastal sting operation in order to catch Nanette and Eric, who they still believed were behind the murder. The theory was that Nanette cooked up the plan to slay Bill and convinced her boyfriend Eric to do the dirty work so that they could start a new life together with the money that she would receive. That way, Nanette could play the distraught partner when she returned, and Eric could slip back to work as an alibi. On May 20th, 2009, the two were detained and stood trial soon after. Eric was found guilty of first-degree murder on July 14th, 2011, whereas Nanette was convicted on January 23, 2012. Eric has spoken out about the killing, backing up the theory that Nanette masterminded a murder-for-hire plot to get rid of Bill, with the only exception being that Eric played no part in it. When questioned about his 9mm gun, Eric said that the killer could have gone behind his back by instruction of Nanette to use it without his permission. How convenient. Regardless, both of them still maintain their innocence to this day. During Nanette's court appearance, Kim McLaughlin, Bill's daughter, said,
"The destructive trail of deceit is astounding. The fact that you, Nanette, destroyed so many lives, including my dad's, along the way, is vile. Your web of lies has caught up with you, finally."
Eric refused to be present when Bill's family got to speak out about the two monsters who took the life of their loved one. Senior District Attorney Matt Murphy wasn't happy with this, going on to say,
"He was a gigantic coward. He's always been a coward, but he refused to come out of his cell today to listen to what the family had to say. That's what happened. And it exemplifies him to a T."
By the time that Nanette and Eric were arrested, Naposki briefly moved overseas, where he played American football, then moved to Connecticut, where he was living with his fiancée. William McNeil, who was Nanette's husband at the time of the arrest, testified against her during the court battle. During the trial, he said that he was blindsided when his wife was arrested and initially supported her, before realizing the woman had told him a lot of lies that didn't add up with the facts. In fact, he claimed he never knew she was a suspect in the murder case. The lesson here is to always do the standard social media and Google search when going into a new relationship. It could save you from saying "I do" to a gold-digging murderer. William McNeil did bring Nanette's son to visit her for a little while, but he eventually stopped and filed for divorce in 2010. Eric Naposki remarried at a church in Barcelona and had two more children, a son and a daughter. At the time of his arrest in 2009, he was working for a security company that watched over ESPN's Bristol campus. He even took classes at UConn, continuing his undergrad degree in general studies, and opened his own gym. He had a lovely wife, thriving gym, and a great group of friends. Life was good for Eric, but that all changed the second the handcuffs were slapped on his wrists.
Former boyfriend and ex-NFL linebacker named Eric Naposki, who authorities say shot the rich businessman 6 times in his kitchen nearly 2 decades ago.
What happened to Nanette Packard? Nanette was handed a life sentence without the possibility of parole for the crime, and so at the age of 57, she is currently incarcerated at the Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla. She now spends most of her time training service dogs through a prison program called the Little Angels. In an interview, she once said that the dogs gave her a lot of healing, and that knowing that she is helping others helps her cope with being away from her children. When asked about the murder, she said that she still holds a lot of guilt over what happened, despite claiming to be innocent, believing that Bill would have still been alive if she hadn't started an affair with Eric. With that being said, she says she doesn't know if Eric had a hand in the crime either. Nanette always claimed that she had no reason to kill Bill as there was no financial gain. But I think we could all agree that a luxurious beach house and $150,000 isn't exactly nothing. If her argument was that she wasn't in need of the cash, then why risk the fraud charges when forging Bill's checks? Eric was also handed a life sentence after a 4-week trial, with jurors finding the man guilty of shooting Bill McLaughlin in cold blood. Cases like this are disturbing for one major reason. you never really know what the people closest to you in your life are capable of. The world is rife with murder, which is sadly an epidemic that seems to be getting worse as time goes on. Feeling nervous about your personal safety when out in public is understandable, but would it ever cross your mind that you could be shot dead in your own kitchen on the instruction of someone you shared a bed with that night? Thanks for tuning in to Twisted Minds. That was the case of Nanette Johnson. And why don't you go ahead and click on one of the 2 videos on your screen for another one of our videos.